Hey everybody. Wanted to make a quick video about World War I propaganda posters. So your next assignment is going to be to create your own propaganda poster based on an original idea, an original message that you create, given what you know about propaganda posters. So you can see the background of this title slide has a lot of artwork that was created to represent propaganda posters, and most of these are existing posters that were actually published during World War One, and some of them were created original. Anyways, your assignment is going to be to create your own original message and artwork, whether it be by hand on paper or digitally through Google Slides. I'll get all of the instructions and information out later, but first I wanted to give you all a brief rundown of propaganda posters, what their purpose was, and then we'll look at a few and we'll analyze some of the different aspects and features that they have. So let's get started on what was World War One propaganda. We kind of got into this a little bit in our first the Great War slideshow. Propaganda is just a method of using art and posters in effort to persuade the opinions of others to feel the same way that the artist does. So basically what happens is the creator of the propaganda poster will decide what's the message they want to portray and how do they want to portray it. And then the purpose of this is to put it out there to the public and try to grab the emotions of whoever is viewing it. This was particularly popular during World War One. This is kind of where propaganda posters really took off. Um, During this time, if you follow the different propaganda posters throughout the war, you'll see that the tone certainly changes in the United States. Early on, the United States was practicing neutrality, meaning that their philosophy was to assist the Allied powers in ways other than fighting. So they were going to stay home, but do what they could to support them. They did this through providing food, but still maintain a position to keep the troops out of the war. As time went on, the Germans continued to prod at the United States and eventually caused them to be fully involved in the war. While this transition happened, so did the tone of the propaganda that was being created. Propaganda posters can also hold various different messages. We've studied things like political cartoons and yellow journalism that also portray different opinions and feelings about conflicts. The messages being presented come through pictures and text that are shown on these posters. Some of the messages can be very subtle, meaning that you have to try to put together some information to get the overall message. And then others can be very straightforward and to the point. How the artist of the poster choose to get their message across was totally up to them, as it will be up to you. So some different examples of messages that can be portrayed through these propaganda posters can, during World War One really varied. First example was for buying Liberty bonds. It encouraged the public to support the war effort financially. Another message was saving and conserving food, which encouraged Americans to ration their food and not waste it, so that way they would have more to send overseas. Keeping your mouth closed was another message. At this time, people, especially Americans, were really paranoid that there were enemy spies listening in. So all Americans were encouraged not to talk openly about the war effort, for fear that somebody may hear something and go back and report it to Central Powers. Another message would be joining the armed forces. It encouraged young Americans to sign up for the Army or Navy. Um, Demonizing the enemy, make the enemy look as bad and as mean as possible to try to get people to support the idea of going to war. There were also lots and lots of propaganda posters about women in the war effort. This encouraged women to take on the jobs traditionally performed by men, such as working in a factory or on a farm. A lot of times, we didn't have a lot of dedicated military men who were in reserves when World War One broke out. People had to get up and leave their current jobs to go fight in the war, and America still needed to operate the same way, and so somebody had to fill those jobs that the men were leaving to go fight in the war. Um, Women were also encouraged to provide food for soldiers using their sewing textile skills. Anything they could do to help out was encouraged. And then two more examples: winning the war. A general effort encouraging citizens to do whatever they could to keep the morale high, to continue to support your country. That idea of nationalism, all of those things were embedded in those messages. And then finally, increased production of war supplies, ensure that our troops would always have what they needed to be successful overseas. So those were, 8 examples. There's certainly more, but those were probably the main 8 that were always or most frequently seen in different propaganda posters. So you're welcome to choose any of those 8. If you can think of more, you're certainly more than welcome to do so. Make sure that if you do go outside of this list, you clear it with me first. We want to make sure that everything is good to go there. So next thing we're going to do is look at this kind of collage of World War One propaganda posters and kind of look at um, the different messages that were being portrayed. So what I want you to do is pause this video and take a look at some of the different posters in here and try to identify what the message is, who the audience is, who the poster was, the artist of the poster was hoping to reach, and then what kind of message they were portraying through their art. So go ahead and pause this now and take a look at that. Write down some notes if you want to, make mental notes if that's what you want to do. But certainly take a look at most of these posters and try to identify the message and the audience. Okay, now we're going to look at some individual posters and just kind of briefly talk about what the message was supposed to be here. This one has a woman draped in an American flag looking dress. She also has stars and stripes on her hat. And the caption says, "Be patriotic, sign your country's pledge to save the food." So, again, this kind of goes along with the food conservation method where Americans were encouraged to ration their food portions, make sure that we had plenty of food to send overseas, and those types of things. So the audience or the intended audience of this poster is pretty much everybody. Um, and the message that they're trying to get across is food conservation. The next one is famous Uncle Sam. You see him in a lot of propaganda from World War One and Two. Um, Oh, Uncle Sam here is telling you, I'm telling you on June 28th, I expect you to enlist in the Army of War Savers to back up my Army of Fighters, WSS enlistment. So basically, what he's telling you to do is to um, enlist in the Army of War Savers as backup, which is generally um, a World War One kind of reserve army, to have troops ready to go if we need them. The next one is what appears to be the Statue of Liberty, and she is holding a telephone. For those of you who have never seen a telephone style like that, that was I was probably about 84 when that style of telephone came out, so remember that pretty good. But anyways, Statue of Liberty saying, "Hello, this is Liberty speaking. Billions of dollars are needed and needed now." So basically, the message on this propaganda poster is to donate. Now, we talked a little bit about war bonds. You will see tons and tons of propaganda posters that are geared towards the purchase of war bonds or Liberty bonds, to financially support the United States in World War One. Next one's Uncle Sam again. I want you for the U.S. Army. This is probably the most popular propaganda poster that's ever been created. Um, Pretty much everybody has seen this one, familiar with at least seeing Uncle Sam in this kind of pointing at you position. This one was intended for pretty much anybody in America. and is just saying that you need to go and join the Army. Next one is a Liberty Bond, Liberty Loans here. It's a lady holding an American flag with some soldiers down there in the background who are headed off to battle, fight or buy bonds. So basically, this is saying that everybody can play a role in the war, whether it be physically going to fight or financially buying war bonds and Liberty Loans. Then the last one, this one's pretty interesting. Turn your silver bullets turn your silver into bullets at the post office. You can see it's a hand holding a bunch of silver coins, and as they're falling, they're turning into bullets. So again, this is another one that's kind of geared towards your war loans, Liberty bonds, things like that. Basically saying your money can help us win this war. So there's a few different examples of propaganda posters. You have a big collage right here, and then we broke down the individual examples. Scroll back to the very first slide. You have some art examples. Now, just like I've said all year, if you're not artistically inclined, by no means am I expecting you to produce a Vincent van Gogh masterpiece. If you want to do it digitally, you can. Google Slides is probably the best bet. But again, I will go over the instructions for this project the next time that we meet. It'll be assigned over Easter, and you'll have a couple class periods to work on it. And then what we'll actually do is we will present them through a Zoom meeting sometime in the week following our Easter break. So go back and watch this video again if you need a little bit more insight into propaganda posters, and then we will go over the instructions for your project next time. Thank you for watching.